All right, so hello Alejandra.
Hello, Oscar. Hello.
How is everything going?
Everything is going so well.
Perfect. Glad to hear that. So let's going to get started. Let's speak a bit about holistic research and try to share some insights on this interesting topic.
Yes. So the first question that we have is, what does the holistic research state about the different paradigms, epistemic models, and typologies of research that have existed and have been traditionally considered as opposite?
Perfect. So if you want, you can start telling me a bit about the etymology. What does it refer to?
Well, in this case, the etymology can tell us a little bit about the nature of holistic research. Holistic comes from the word holos, which means whole. And in this concept is of paramount importance because it explains us that all the perspectives that have been held in terms of history and all the contributions of other people and other researchers, we can say, is not something that we need to discard, but it just is a whole. Well, there are other ways in which we can perceive the reality, in which we can perceive what is happening.
Perfect. That's great. So, I would like to speak a bit about this holistic research as well. In most cases, this tends to be confused with the method or a type of investigation, but indeed, this has to do with a research approach. I would like to speak a little about its history, and here I want to talk about CPAL, which is which is this foundation that firstly it started to develop the concept of holistic research by 1995. Now, CPAL stands for Services and Projections for Latin America. So the very first connotations or information related to holistic research was actually started by this time. About the paradigms, do you have anything to share with me about paradigms?
Yes, sure thing. Well, in this case, it's important to take into account that holistic research was a need for research. And this is because we were accustomed to have very opposite paradigms. For example, we had positivism, phenomenology, which, as you can tell, they are opposite. So, holistic research, what tried was to condense everything because, in this case, we could say that they are other ways to perceive the world. But both of them, or well, all of them, are valid and they contribute to knowledge. So in this case, paradigms in this sense are valid. No matter if they have been discarded before, they are valid and they are knowledge. And these are, as I said before, other ways to construct knowledge.
Okay, that's perfect. Thoroughly agree with you. And I would like to add a little more to these and trying to approach this question on what holistic research states about these paradigms. And is that holistic research does not see these paradigms as isolated parts. Instead, they see them as they are complementary. They can complement one another. So one can contribute to the other. And this is one of the main characteristics of the holistic research, how all types research methods can be integrated. I would like to mention as well, historically, when we talk about these methods, one method can contradict the other. One method can reduce the other. So there has been this kind of fight or controversy with the different methods or paradigms. Holistic research is changing this reality. It's taking all the good things from each method, and it's demonstrated that it is possible to conduct research using all of them. So that is what this holistic research is referring and mentioning about the traditional methods. Let's move forward to our next slide, please.
Yes, let's see. Okay, then the next question is how can you explain the principles of holistic research here? In this case, we have 6 different principles that explain how this holistic research serves. For example, the first one is unity of everything. In this case, is related to what I was previously, well, what I was mentioning before. In this case, what we can tell is that all the contributions, all the research, or the research that has been done is just a whole. It's part of a whole. So this is, we could say that this is just like this is the big picture. When we talk about a whole, we're talking about the big picture. And when we think about every single aspect, every single theory, every single perspective, it's just one way to interpret it that contributes to a complete image. What do you think, Oscar?
Yeah, I thoroughly agree with you. And regarding the concept of universe, in this principle, it is asserted that the universe, we can understand and see that the universe is considered as a whole, and that everything within the universe is intimately interconnected. I see this as an analogy when it comes to holistic research, because everything in research has to be interconnected, and we come again to the same connotation of integral parts, complementary parts, because they are seen as a universe. About synchronicity, we have two keywords, which are connection and a causal. Let's
Okay.
speak a little bit about, perhaps you can talk about connection.
Sure thing. So, well, in this case, I would like to talk about connection because holistic research finds ways in which concepts, in which people are connected. But these connections are not direct. Sometimes when we think about connection, we think about things that are related in a explicit way. But in this case, we have a connection that is not linear. In this case, we're talking about a connection that can be so far, but in this case, there is a connection that can be identified by holistic research. Okay, what can you tell us a little bit about the causal part?
Yeah, when we talk about connection, as you mentioned, we probably think about cause and effect. Connection has a cause, and these cause triggers an effect. But in holistic research, things are a little bit different. They they consider phenomena or situations linked to non-linear, or in this case, the word a causal, referring to that there is not a connection that is simple. Instead, this concept was proposed by John, where he tries to describe the occurrence of two or more events without possible causal connection. It's can be understood as something irregular, not cause and effect, but instead a causal. That is what it is referring to.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Now, let's move on a little bit to integrality. In this case, we mentioned the words influences, diverse, and complex. I would like to explain a little bit influences. In this case, well, in the past, it was believed that all the process of research was related to cognitive processes, of logics, of many other aspects that are related to these complex, let's say, complex processes. But we can also think about, and now holistic research integrates something a little bit more, something that goes beyond, that are the human complexities. We can include values, we can include perspectives, we can include history, because all of them can shape research. Okay, what do you think, Oscar?
Yeah, sure. I agree with you. I would like to add something very important regarding this concept, and it has to do with diversity and complexity. So we understand that the universe is a unity, but we cannot simply say that it is uniform, but instead the universe is considered complex. So integrality has to do a lot about this. It refers to unity in diversity. We know that the human being is an integral being, is also unified and can be, as you said, can be manifested in various or different dimensions, like biophysical, volitional, cognitive, ethical. And you know that research can be represented also in different scenarios, like research um, is an experience of integrality, as you said. It can take place in a social context, in historical character, and it is also immersed in a system of values. So here we can see how integral is referring to all of these components. And ultimately, this is what holistic research is aiming to, looking for a lot of parts that can explain phenomena and situations, but not letting any detail aside, but instead taking into account all of them.
Okay, that's right. I totally agree with your points. But let's see. In this case, let's discuss about open possibilities. We have creative and non-routine. In this case, we can say that when we conduct a research, we need to be open to all the situations that may arise. For example, there we can encounter problems that we, of course, weren't expecting. So it's the job of the researcher to find creative ways to solve this. Or if the research finds a way to consider this situation as an aspect that can be analyzed, it's something that holistic research supports. Apart from that, I would like to mention that there is something really interesting about holistic research, and there are two approaches that states. This research has to be structured. It has to have a structure because it's important to follow a specific path, a specific plan. But also, the other approach states that it's important to be open. So they are totally opposite. One says that we need a structure, and the other says that research can happen in a different structure. And this reminds me a little bit of quantitative and qualitative research, where one starts with, for example, principles, hypotheses, but the other one starts with observation. There is a theory, but at the end. So I would like to say that I relate these two concepts to open possibilities. So what do you think, Oscar? What can you add to what I said?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to do this intervention. All right, so open possibilities. In my case, I consider this has to do a lot with the researcher attitude. Open possibilities means to be creative, to be dynamic, to think about different ways of conducting research, not just sticking to a single method, instrument, but in contrast, to think about all possible ways to conduct research in order to look for better solution or understanding of a phenomena. In a simple word, so that's what I can say about open possibilities. Let's move forward to complementarity.
Yes. So let's see. I would like to say about complementarity. I would like to say it is a very interesting aspect, principle of holistic research. In this case, we have a concept, syntagma. In this case, syntagma is just the representation of a very broad understanding. It's a big knowledge that we have created through different contributions. In this case, this is constantly enriched by other theories, by other perspectives. So what is interesting about complementarity is that, well, is that everything contributes, everything is a contribution, and nothing is discarded in this aspect. What do you think, Oscar?
Well, I thoroughly agree with you, where you mentioned that syntagma represents this broad perception of an event from various or wide range of viewpoints. So what is important of this is that we can have a better understanding or a greater understanding of an event, and we can perceive this event as a totality, not from a single perspective, but we can actually analyze it from different sides. So I really like, and I mean, this is one of the terminologies that I could say caught my attention during the whole study of holistic research, because indeed it give us another perspective on how to approach research.
All right.
Lastly, let's talk about evolution on holistic spiral.
Right. So in this case, one word, well, we have two words to describe this principle, and they are changes and dynamic. I would like to focus on changes, and there was a very interesting concept that I found in this reading, and it was related to that knowledge is not static. Knowledge is always changing, is an ongoing process, is ever changing, is moving. So what we consider true in the past is maybe not the same as now. And something that holistic research consider is this knowledge that is constantly produced, because knowledge is not static. These insights that we can get are always changing. And something I would like to add is that this depends on the context, on the environment, on people in general. So this is what we can tell about changes. What do you think about dynamic, Oscar?
I agree with you with your intervention regarding the changes that we see in life and in the world of research as well. Um, I would like to add that this principle establishes that everything is in constantly changing, and you, as you mentioned, and therefore knowledge is also subject to change. The pursuit of knowledge is a dynamic process in which what may be accepted today perhaps it's not going to be accepted tomorrow, so it's gonna be changing. Um, that's the reason why we have to be in a continuous process of researching, and in other words, we need to be at the vanguard of changes. We need to learn how to approach them. And that's actually what dynamic refers to, how we are not going to stay in only one point, but how we are going to learn how to move and how to approach changes in this ever-changing world. Yeah, that's pretty much about dynamic here.
All right. So now let's move on to the next question. Okay. What does the holistic research cycle or spiral mean? This is related to what we were just mentioning about this spiral, well, this holistic research spiral. Something I would like to mention is I would like to bring up what I just said, that is an ongoing process. So this spiral represents an infinite process in which even if we go through different stages, there will be always something that you need to go through. And this is what we call an ongoing process. And well, in this case, I also would like to mention that it's regarding the objective. So when we are conducting a research, we need to consider these different stages because each stage becomes more challenging in the process. We start with something very simple and it begins to go deeper and deeper and deeper because the knowledge that we have acquired is broader in every single stage. So what do you think, Oscar? What would you like to say about this holistic research spiral?
Yeah, again, I see eye to eye to your comments on this spiral, which in other words is a representation of the continuous process that we've been talking about lately. It can be represented in this spiral. Uh, I have to say that this spiral or is also there is something important here regarding the results of a research, and it doesn't actually focus on final results. The objectives are not considered final, but instead they are integrative and they doesn't have an end. They are always one complements the other, and we cannot think about uh, let's say a finish line in this case. In this spiral, we can see that there are 10 basic categories of objectives. We can mention exploring some phases, we can call them as well. Exploring, describing, analyzing, comparing, explaining, predicting, proposing, intervening, confirming, sorry, and evaluating. So all these phases are important to conduct this research, this holistic research. And in the end, this is going to be an ongoing process in search of this knowledge generation.
All right. So yeah, I agree with you. And it's important to take into account these different actions that we're going to take that you mentioned, explore, describe, and so on. So let's see. Let's get a move on. Let's continue with this question. What are some other features of the holistic research? Hmm,
Perfect.
okay.
So, okay, taking in mind that we just have like 4 minutes to finish this video, it's going to shut down. Let's going to take it pretty brief. So for going back to the this presentation on the other features, I would like to state the the first feature, which is transdisciplinary research. And this is very interesting because here we can see how holistic research tries again to integrate other disciplines. How can we perceive research not only from one discipline or subject, but how this research can also be understood from other disciplines, call it science, maths, how and this is something important because again, this reminds me about the syntagma concept in which we can see different things. We can see the research from a wide range of viewpoints. So this is what transdisciplinary is referring to, how to connect different disciplines into a research.
Yes, that is something that I highly agree with you. And also, I would like to mention about this aspect of no boundaries. It's not related that we're not going to set a scope for our research, but in this case, as knowledge is, well, it's so massive because all the contributions are taken into account. In this case, no boundaries is related to the knowledge. But of course, researchers have to set a scope to, well, to conduct this kind of studies. And what else? Yeah, I would like to say I would like to mention this aspect of human research. In this case, we can take into account all the perspectives, all the values, all the feelings that we, of course, can take into account, and we value these um, inputs that we are getting from other people. So,
Per
well,
Perfect. That's great. Let's move
I,
forward.
yeah, sure. Which of the new concepts or ideas related to this approach caught your attention?
All right. I think I just mentioned this in the previous slide where I mentioned transdisciplinary research. I see it pretty interesting that we can see a research from different points and that we can actually integrate it into different disciplines. Okay, so if I have to pick something very interesting among all, I would say transdisciplinary research.
All right. Something I would like to mention is this nature of complementarity. It just surprised me the way in which these conflicting paradigms, they, because they have had many differences, and as I said before, they discard all the knowledge, like this is not valid, but what we say is valid. So we say in this case, holistic research takes all this contribution and say this, all of this is valid, this is knowledge, and are just different perspectives. Okay, good. So now let's move on to the last question here. How can a research proposal be developed under the approach of holistic research? We can mention different aspects that should be taken into account in order to conduct a holistic research. So if a researcher decides to carry out this kind of a study under the holistic research approach, one of the aspects that they should consider or take into account are the objectives. And this is because these objectives are going to start with a simple but concise information. But as the research progresses, the objectives move deeper, as in the previous stages. The insights that have been gained constitute a basis that will become stronger. So this is a successive research. We have to set successive research objectives because, as I mentioned before, everything is going to start with something basic because that's going to be the guide for the research. But as we're moving forward, they are going to become richer. Another aspect that we find crucial in this type of research is related to integration. For example, this research tends to include different research methods. In other kind of research, we also include different strategies, different methods to gather information. And this is not an exception for this holistic research. So we're going to, in order to explore all the possibilities, all the knowledge that we can get, we can use different research methods. And well, something that it's important to always go through, it's an ongoing reflection and different adjustments. So a researcher has to be always reflecting about what is happening right now. Plus, we know that their point of view is really vital for this to happen. And as we previously mentioned, this kind of knowledge, this knowledge that is ongoing, that is always changing, should be taken into account. So, Oscar, what do you think? Is there something else you would like to add?
Yes, sure. I would like to add some other information apart of those interesting information that you shared. And here I would like to call on the words of Hurtado, in which she's stating that it is important to, especially when it comes to formulating the question, there are some conditions that have to be met in order to go under a holistic research. So the first condition, in a few words, has to do, and this condition reflects an aspect related to curiosity, expectation, need, difficulty. So we have to think about our questions that triggered all of these aspects. Also, conflict, contradiction, all of these elements are really important in order to formulate the question if we want to go into holistic research. Second condition is that the aspect of interest is expressed through a clear, precise, concrete, and accessible interrogative sentence. Third condition is that the question implies such difficulty that a systematic and rigorous process is required to answer it. So remember that not every question constitutes a research question. That's the reason why this author is making a lot of reference in formulating the research question. It is also essential to ensure that research question is clearly expressed and encompasses the aspects that make up the research question. For example, what is wanted to be known, about what, for whom, where, and when. So also we have to take into consideration that we can think about other questions, and this will lead us to different phases. For example, what is there, referring to the exploratory research? How is it, referring to the descriptive research? To what extent does it correspond, analytical research? What different is there, comparative research? Why, explanatory research? How will the future be, predictive research? How will a proposal be, prospective research? What changes can it produce, interactive research? What relationship exists, confirmatory research? How effective is it, evaluative research? So if we think about these questions before studying a research, we are entering a holistic research because we will be ultimately using all of these questions to formulate the research, the research questions, and this will lead us upon the completion of all these phases. I wanted to add this important information because it's also essential when we are planning to enter a holistic research. That's pretty much what I wanted to share with you.
Okay, thank you very much, Oscar. So, in a nutshell, holistic research has grown in popularity because of its flexible nature and also because it's inclusive. As you know, it has taken all the insights produced as everything is just another way to see things. It's just a matter of perspective, but all of them are valid for the generation of individuals. So, well, with this, we conclude this video. And well, Oscar, thank you very much for having this space, this talk about holistic research. It has been very um, enriching for me.
Sure, thank you, Alejandro, as well, for providing your insights and helping me build knowledge upon this interesting topic, which is holistic research. See you next time. Take care.